Howdy y'all. Welcome back to Camp Shack Productions. What if I told you most of the things we've been taught about how to stay warm in the outdoors when we're hiking or recreating is wrong? For example, if you're cold, put on all of your layers and you will warm up. What if I told you that was an absolute myth? The thing that gets us cold when we're outdoors is getting wet. Once we get wet, the whole game changes in situations like this. So let's talk about some ways to avoid that and some things that you could do to properly prepare yourself to go camping, to go hiking, to be outside and enjoy it and not freeze. Let's dive into it. So, we're always taught that if you're cold, put on everything you have, right? For example, I spent the night up here last night and it got below zero. Definitely hit 1 degree at one point where I could see that on the thermometer. And with wind chill, it was probably, I would say, negative 10, 6, 8, something like that. So when in that situation, I really wanted to have all of my warm gear on. For example, right now I have a down coat on, a fleece vest, a synthetic jacket that has a hood that is really nice, a wool sweater, and my Patagonia underlayer. And then I also have a set of long johns on, and I slept in fresh, clean socks. So it really comes down to making sure that you have exactly what you need and you use it the correct way. So let's dive into some of those things. The very first thing I want to start with is your base layer. It's a super important layer. And there's a few factors you want to look for. You do not want cotton. Get rid of all cotton. No hoodies, no cotton socks, no cotton sweats. If you're going to be out and you're going to get wet, get rid of cotton. I am a big fan of Patagonia. It is definitely on the more expensive side, but not the most expensive, but definitely some good stuff. So you want a light, wicking moisture base layer for your underneath, on top and on the bottom. It's really important that you find something that wicks moisture well. You can also go with something like this or the Patagonia stuff that I have on right here. But one of the new companies that I really have found and I like, as long as you're okay with camo, this company is called KUIU. And KUIU makes hunting gear, and these guys do a bomber job. This little super micro fleece, which I would consider a base layer, I put this right next to my skin, wicks moisture better than anything I have ever owned and dries and keeps you warm like nothing I have ever seen. And let's see if I can even tell you what this is. This is the KUIU Peloton 97. So they have a few other colors, but it's all hunting geared. So you're definitely going to see more of that camo stuff. So base layer, super duper important. All right, next let's talk about a very important layer, your mid layer. What I like to call your buffer zone. Think of this as something that if you're hot and sweaty, you can take on and off. Also, it's really important to think about the material of your mid layer. I highly recommend staying away from down in your mid layers. Down is a great fabric unless it gets wet. And if your inner layer is wicking moisture and it's pushing it out, that's going to hit your mid layer. So here are my recommendations. Something synthetic, something light, something easy that you can layer over the top of, like this Arc'teryx windbreaker. I also have a Patagonia just mini micro. This is synthetic and this thing is super warm. It's also really easy to take on and off. You could go with something like this. This is also a synthetic, and I like it because it's got the nice big pocket right here that I can slide my hands into when I need to. But the thing that I'm going to recommend most is wool. Straight up old school wool sweater. This is 100% wool. There is no merino, there is no fleece, there is no anything like that. And the best part about wool is that if you get it wet, it retains like 80 to 90% of its insulating value. So if you're sweaty, if you're moving around, if you're hiking a bunch, I would highly recommend doing a wool sweater. It will really save you. And you don't have to get fancy. You don't have to go out and buy a $500 Nordic wool sweater. Try your local thrift store. See if they have anything that's wool. It doesn't even have to be made for outdoors. It just has to be 100% wool. The other thing you could do is fleece. Fleece is not my favorite fabric for stuff like this, but it does work. I do use a lot of fleece vests. In fact, I'm going to put this one on now because I'm starting to get cold, but it's a good mid insulator. And I don't think people give vests enough credit. My arms aren't what gets cold, it's my core. So I'm a big fan of this. Yeah, mid layer, super important. No cotton, don't do down either, just my suggestion. All right, so let's get into what everybody wants to talk about, where everybody wants to spend all their money. That's on their outer layers. This is the layer that is going to give you protection from snow, cold, wind, those types of things. And again, layered together correctly, this can really work out in your favor. This is a place where I would recommend down. Just remember, don't let it get wet. Put something over the top of it. Put a shell on it. Put something on it if it's snowy or if there is weather coming in and you're going to get wet. Because again, once your down gets wet, it is useless. It's just basically a soppy sack that you're carrying around and it is not keeping you warm anymore. So I would recommend down. Then I would recommend some sort of light outer shell. This is my REI Gore-Tex outer shell. I buy these a little big so that way I can layer underneath them. And then this would just go over the top of any of the gear that you have so far. And it's just really light. All this does is stops wind and it also protects you from elements. This is also something that I think people all the time forget about. They call it their rain jacket. I like to call it my shell. But this is something where if you're in a backpacking trip or something like that and you're cold and you have this tucked in your bag and it's not raining, pull it out, put it on. It'll block the wind, it'll retain some of your inner core temperature, and it'll keep you much warmer. Some of the other things you can do are some sort of outdoor pant that are like a stretch pant, depending on what kind of activity you're in and depending on how much snow there is. If you are going to do something like that, I would highly recommend going and picking up a set of gaiters. These just fit over the bottom of your boot or shoe and then wrap around your calf so that snow doesn't get in those very uncomfortable places where you don't want snow. So I would recommend looking at a set of gaiters. You can get them in all different styles, but that will really help. Then, if you need to, you can move up to your snow pants. I live in Utah. I'm an ex-skier. I still backcountry ski a lot, just don't spend a lot of time at the resort anymore. And these are some of the things that you definitely want to have. Another bonus tip, I recommend getting a pair of suspenders. It really helps. And with my cross-country skis, my boots are really low. So I'll use these and I'll also put the gaiters on around the snow pant gaiter to really make sure things stay out. One of the other things you can get is a puffy vest. Again, this is that place where you can put on, layer up, get ready with all of the warm stuff that you need so that you don't freeze while you're out there. A couple of things that people I think often forget are your hats. Definitely want to have a couple. When I go hiking, I wear a hat that I hike in and then I keep a spare hat in my backpack. So that way when I get to wherever I am and I'm going to sit down and have lunch or hang out for a little while, I have a dry hat that I can put on because again, this is going to get wet from me sweating. Once it does that, it's going to get super cold. So you definitely want to do that. Also, neck gaiters. I highly recommend these winter, spring, summer, or fall. These things can keep you from getting a sunburn. They can also keep you from really getting cold. I mean, I have a bunch of them. I think I have 5 neck gaiters, and I just rotate through them. In the summertime, they're great because they can be a sweatband. In the wintertime, they're great because they can completely cover your face. These are a really good thing to have around. One of the other things that people I think often forget are your gloves. Again, I carry 2 pairs of gloves in my pack. I usually will hike with these if it's really wet and cold. And then I just have these lined work gloves that I think I bought for like $12. And I keep these in my bag so that when I get to wherever I am and my hands are cold, I can slide on a pair of gloves that are lined. They're warm, they're cheap, and they will just keep my hand dry while my other gloves dry out. So, you know, like I said, you can never have enough gloves. You can bump all the way up to something like a really expensive, almost $200 pair of Gore-Tex gloves, which usually I only wear when I'm skiing and it's dumping. These are some old gloves that I just cut the fingers off of so that when I'm doing my photography, I have the ability to move my hands around. So you got options. So these are my final thoughts for you all. When you are hiking and you are getting warm and sweaty and hot, take layers off. Really make sure that you are not sweating. It is the number one key to staying warm. Have extra socks in your bag because your Gore-Tex boots are going to trap all of your sweat and your socks are going to get wet and cold. So when you stop, you're going to want to change your socks. Have extra socks. Most of the gear that I have on here, I'm going to store in my backpack while I go hiking. My backpack is going to look gigantic. It's going to be completely filled, but all of this stuff that I need to keep myself super duper warm, I'm going to keep in a bag because I don't need it when I'm hiking. I hike extremely hot. I sweat. So I want to stay light and dry as much as possible. So what I would recommend is a underlayer, something like your Polypro, and then a light shell. This thing is kind of fleece lined, it's windproof, it's a little bit water resistant. I mean, if it's really snowing, you're going to have to change this up. But for just say a day like this where it's cold, but I'm going to go hiking and it's not going to snow, I'm going to start in this. Start cold. Always start your hikes cold. You know, my wife, we go hiking and she will have all of this stuff on, and 8 minutes into the hike, she's got to stop to remove layers because she's sweating. So, you know, get out of your car, take a big swig of your coffee, be warm, take all your stuff, pack it up, and put your little light jacket on and just start hiking. If you are getting cold while hiking, though, stop, put layers on. Don't let your core temperature get low. But if you're anything like me, go with something super light. Be able to take it off once it gets wet and sweaty, and then have extra gear inside of your bag that you can switch to. If you do those things, you'll have no problem at all staying warm while hiking, or even camping. You know, just remember, it's a game of on and off, on and off. Don't overheat. Don't get so cold that your body can't recover from it. Outro, take like 12. All right, y'all. So those are my tips for you when you are out hiking, or camping when it's extremely cold, or when you know you're going to be dealing with changing inclement weather. Just remember, it's always better to turn around and stay alive than keep going forward and get yourself into a bad situation. Hey, I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please go down and hit that like button. And remember, if you don't go down and subscribe right now, the next time you go hiking or camping in cold weather, your inner layer, your underlayer is going to absolutely freeze, and you are going to be hiking and just freeze in place. And I don't want to see that happen to you. So go down, hit that subscribe button. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you in the next one. Be well, my friends.